People pleasing. Did you know that it can really be bad for your health? Well, you're probably like me, right? You grew up that being kind was so important and it was something that you needed to do and you had to help everybody. But as we get older, all of this people pleasing that we do, it can really ruin your health. So what I thought I'd do today is show you 5 different examples where you might get into situations where you're probably going to regret them later. So let's get into tip number 1. And it's a financial obligation. Now I'm just going to start off with something fairly simple. You've got these friends, and I've got friends, oh my gosh, you know, from years and years ago. And maybe they didn't have as many kids as I had. Maybe they, you know, they had a secure, I'm an entrepreneur, so maybe they had a secure job. They've got this amazing pension. They were savers. They didn't invest in their own business, that sort of thing. And now they want to go traveling. And so they ask you, hey, we're going on a Caribbean vacation. We'd love you to join us. Do you want to come along? And first of all, you're thinking to yourself, I can't financially swing that, but I don't want to look like I'm, you know, I can't afford it either. And so you say yes. And then you start to realize, oh my gosh, I'm going to put this on a credit card. It's going to be 21%. And then you start to regret it. Or they might say to you, oh, you know, we're in town. Let's go to this fancy restaurant. Of course, it's going to be separate checks. You're going to have one. They're going to have one. And they start ordering nice bottles of, you don't want to say no to the big bottles of wine or the expensive bottles of wine. And you find yourself again in a situation where, you know, maybe a big steakhouse is not going to break you for a long time, but still you have to sort of say no. Like maybe you can offer, you know what, I don't live too far away from a lot of those places. Why don't you come over here? We'll have a barbecue. Or, you know what, I can't swing a vacation this year, but you guys have a great time, it sounds, and make sure you send me pictures because I'm so excited. And those are the kind of answers that we got to start setting boundaries to, especially if you are in a different kind of financial position than a lot of your friends are who, you know, are just wealthy and living their golden years out, right? And I think that's a good thing to do. Just set the boundary right off the top and say no, or maybe like in the steakhouse idea, offer another kind of suggestion. And that way the date doesn't get closer like the Caribbean vacation where you have to sort of bow out, and that's just not something that you want to do. And there's so many other ways, right, that we can get into financial problems. Maybe there's a friend of yours and they've just become a financial advisor and they've got this great, you know, thing that you're just going to make a ton of money on. Whoa, you really have to watch that, especially if they know that you do have money, right? Or maybe friends or family have decided to start up a new business and, oh, it's going to be so great and your investment is going to pay off. It's always really fantastic at the beginning. And then what ends up happening a lot of times when things go south, not only is your friendship or your family relation going to be strained, but also you might be on the hook, depending on whether you're a limited partnership or a full partnership or anything along that, you might be on the hook for a lot more than just the investment. So I think a lot of people think that retired people have all this money just sitting in the bank. And even if you do, I'm just saying that the people-pleasing part of this with friends and family, you got to set your boundaries and you have to maybe say, you know what, we want to have certain ideas for our retirement, and unfortunately investing in a business is one of them, or whatever, something along those lines. All right, let's look at another tip, and that is setting boundaries on our time. Don't you find that a lot of people think just because we're older, we have so much more time on our hands, and really that extra time that we have, I don't know about you, but I just really want it to be my quiet downtime, you know. And if you're finding that you're getting a lot of requests, it could be volunteering, or again, it might be even grandkids, you know. And with grandkids, hey, if you love being with your grandkids, I say go for it. But what you might find is that you love picking them up after school, you know, when the son or the daughter is still working, you love picking them up after school. But then all of a sudden, maybe it's, can you pick them up after school? Can you also feed them their dinner? Yeah, okay. And then, oh, by the way, we're going out with some friends tonight. Do you mind just tucking them into bed? We'll pick them up the next morning. Do you see what happens? Like if it starts to snowball on you, you might be feeling, oh, wait a minute, I can't really say no to this. I love my grandchildren, but this is starting to really invade my own private time because it's 5 days a week. And then all of a sudden, the summer comes along and they say, hey, can you look after our kids in the summer? We have a great opportunity to go backpacking in Europe or something like that. So you see what I mean is it can just snowball into something else. And hey, grandkids are great. But sometimes, again, you have to think of your own time and you have to put limitations on that. Also, with time, this is another big one, right, for a lot of us, and that's elderly parents. Elderly parents need a lot of love. They need a lot of care. It's like grandchildren, you know, you're doing this from your soul. You love them so much. But then you're finding that maybe you're doing some things that people pleasing, you're changing their diaper, you know, you're feeding them and they're not swallowing properly. There seems to be some issues there. Dementia, there's a lot of anger issues that happen with, I know this firsthand, you know, where you're finding that you're being yelled at a lot. And you may just say to yourself, you know what, I can't, I love my parents, but I cannot do this on a regular basis. And in that case, look into caregivers. There's a lot of them that are out there that might even be government sponsored, that are a lot less money. Have them change the diapers. Have them, you know, give you a break maybe on the weekends or something like that, because you cannot pour from an empty cup, and you're not doing anybody a service if you're starting to feel like, you know, my kids are using me for way too much babysitting, or I'm just giving way too much to my elderly parents. What ends up happening is your whole demeanor changes, and also it's going to affect your health. You know, as I'm talking through this video, I always remember a saying, and that's self-care is not selfish. And it's so important to keep repeating that to yourself, because self-care is kind of health-care, right? And talking about quotes and that sort of thing, don't forget to stay until the end of this video, where I'll have a quote for you that will really help you with your people-pleasing situation. Which brings me to tip number 3, and that is really watch the people-pleasing to people who are actually draining you. The Debbie Downers, right? The toxic people, or even somebody who really went through a dark time. And of course, you want to be kind to those people, right? But that was 2 years ago, and now they seem to be calling you all the time and just kind of draining the life out of you, because they just feel like they're victims, right? And they have this situation and that situation, and you want to please them, but you're also finding that you're really losing a part of you that you find was really precious. The truth is that a lot of these people, they actually need more help than you can give them. For many people, they need professional counseling. And let's take an example like grief. They've gone through a loss and it's taking them years, and you're there for them. Well, everybody goes through grief in different stages, different times, and it's important that they talk to a grief counselor. Now, it might be somebody who's trying to get off drugs or trying to get off alcohol, and you're finding that it's a losing battle and that sort of thing. And that's why there are places like AA out there. What ends up happening over time is you find that you actually are codependent on this person. And I learned this, I'm going to tell you a story in just a few minutes. It's Al-Anon. It's people who live with alcoholics, and I'll tell you that in a minute. But basically, you become codependent on them. You're finding that all you're giving and all they're taking is something that is your life now. And so it's something to really, really think about because, again, it's not helping them, and it's also probably, for sure, harming your health. Which brings me to tip number 4, which is feel less guilt. Hard, right? That's such a hard thing to do. But what you have to do is you're weaning these people off of, draining you so much. And you have to replace, every time shame or guilt or that word comes into your head, you have to replace it with self-care. So I'm feeling guilty. Oh, I need self-care. And then take a long bath. Do some yoga. Read a good book. Like, get away from the guilt situation that you're thinking inside your mind all the time. And just to say, I'm going to do self-care. I need some self-care. And the other thing too, I mentioned a few minutes ago about Al-Anon. You might actually need some counseling as well. It's hard to wean yourself away from somebody, especially when they're an alcoholic. And in those particular cases, there are counselors out there that will help you so that you can really look after yourself. Maybe there's other people involved, look after your children, and just go and get some, what they call it, codependency help as well. I know all about this because for 14 years I was with a man, and for a good 10 years he was an alcoholic. And for 5 years he was not only an alcoholic, he wouldn't go to work, he was also abusive as well. And I had 2 children. I had 2 girls. And one day I just, probably 5 years too late, I decided to leave. I went to a home for abused women. I got reconditioned. They sent me to Al-Anon, and I really started realizing my codependency. A lot of women who are in abusive relationships or relationships like that, they do go back. I decided, no, I have 2 girls. I don't want them to think that this is an example of what a father or a man should be. So I decided, no, you know what, I wasn't going to go back. And he chose the bottle over myself and my children, our children, and he died. He died of alcohol poisoning, and that's what he chose to do. And you know what? Even though I think I was 5 years too late, I think I was just in time, because leaving when I did, it probably saved my life. All right, definitely time for me to take a sip of my Earl Grey tea here. And, I'm so glad that you're here, by the way. Like, I'm just so glad that hopefully you've poured yourself one of your favorite beverages as well. We're all here to just, I'm giving heart-to-heart conversations to you. And a lot of the things that I've been through, like my life, as you hear the stories, you'll find that a lot of it was not sunshine and roses. And that's probably why I'm here, because I learned so many lessons. I learned, that I couldn't stay in certain situations. I learned that, there was a happier way to live. And that's what I want to share with you. And to all of you who have subscribed, thank you so much. It means so much when I see that there's support here and the subscriber count going up. And I think there's a button down there somewhere that you can click on. But thanks so much for being with me here. And I'm here every week. So I think it's time for that quote, right? I'm not finished with the video yet. I've still got another tip or two, but let's look at a quote here. Don't be afraid of losing people, but be afraid of losing yourself, trying to make everyone else happy. And that's by Nagiv Mahfouz. I probably didn't pronounce it right, but isn't that the truth? You know, like, we're afraid, oh, we're going to lose our friends. If we don't go on the Caribbean vacation with them, they'll think they don't like us. They're not thinking that. They'll find somebody else. Oh, you know what? Like, I'm going to lose people. I'm not going to make people happy. I'm not a kind person. Basically, what happens is you're dwindling. You're getting smaller. You're getting smaller and smaller. And I think that's a really good quote. Don't lose yourself. And the next tip is just the realization that you are feeling smaller, that you are feeling, you know, that people come to you for money all the time, family or whatever, and you're just, yeah, sure, but you're not feeling the respect anymore. You're just feeling like people are coming to you for that, so you're feeling small that way. Or there are boisterous people out there that, hey, you know what, we're doing this thing next week and it's a volunteer thing and I really need you to be there. And they kind of talk down to you. Do you know those kind of people? And you feel like, well, I can't talk up to this. And you're feeling smaller and smaller and smaller until, you know, a lot of people over 50, they feel that they're actually invisible. And I don't want you to have that. I don't want you to feel like that. You know, it's so important that you don't feel small, that you say to yourself, well, wait a second, you know, I wanted to, I don't know, go to a cottage that weekend. I wanted to rent a cottage that weekend, or I wanted to go play pickleball, or I wanted to go to an art class, or whatever it is. Start thinking about yourself. Put yourself, again, self-care is not selfish, right? Put yourself in a position where you are so important. And I know it's hard, right? But it's so, it's vital that you start to feel like you are a somebody, that people can't talk down to you, people can't take from you. And the realization that people are doing that and that you can say no, that you can set boundaries, it's like life is going to pour into you. You are going to feel so much better. You're going to be so much healthier, and you're going to get back to dreaming again and having goals and setting goals for yourself. And that's just a wonderful way to live. And hey, put in the comments if any of this is resonating with you, or maybe you have some ideas, you know, that really helped you in doing the people pleasing. This is a community, so let's all share with each other. I'd absolutely love that. And I just think in conclusion, you know, you are important. It's so important. Again, I'm going to say it again, self-care is not selfish. And set those boundaries, and then when you move into your golden years, or maybe even be in your golden years right now, you know, you really feel freer, and you feel less tied down, and you can start dreaming again, start getting those goals again. And for me, it's another way to feel inspired, feel empowered. And until we meet again, you know, next week, I'm just so glad that you're here, and I really hope that this little talk on people pleasing really helps someone today. Take care, and I'll see you next week.